Hey guys, I'm Megan and you're watching Bulldog Bites. I'm here today with history instructor Bruce Allardice. Bruce, welcome to the show. So, how long have you been teaching American history classes?
About 9 years now.
Oh, wow. Long time?
Yeah, I'm a veteran, I'm afraid.
Now, in your time instructing, how has the office of the presidency changed?
Glad you asked that. One of the things I've really noticed is how the presidency has grown and become more what I say is imperial. I explained this in my classroom. The political pundit Mark Stein has flown with the King and Queen of England. And he says that the King and Queen of England go around, they fly coach, and they have like a two-car entourage when they go somewhere. But with the presidency today, the president has his own Air Force One. They have a motorcade that literally stretches for a half mile, sometimes up to 130 automobiles flown in.
Wow.
And it's sort of interesting that we have our democratically elected government, but they seem to be a little bit more royal than the King and Queen of England are.
A lot of changes. Now, we celebrate Washington and Lincoln's birthday in February. Can you tell us any interesting facts about either of those presidents?
Well, one of the interesting things is that President's Day never falls on either Washington's birthday or Lincoln's birthday.
Oh, that's odd.
The origin was it was supposed to be Washington's birthday. They wanted to include Lincoln in, and there were too many federal holidays. So they decided to pass a law to sort of have a universal president's holiday, but it won't fall on any of their birthdays.
Very interesting.
Washington was an interesting fellow. I like to bring this out in my classes. One of the interesting things was that after he left the presidency, he became the biggest whiskey distiller in the country.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, the distillery that he made basically from products on his estate sold whiskey to the local farmers in Northern Virginia, and the whiskey distillery has been restored, and today you can still order George Washington whiskey from the Mount Vernon distillery.
What president would pique your personal interest and why?
To me, the most interesting president is Teddy Roosevelt. He may not be the best president, but to me he's the most interesting because this is a man who was distinguished in so many fields. He would have been in the history books even if he hadn't have been a politician. He was a police chief. He was a cowboy. He was a serious historian. He was an explorer, an ornithologist, a war hero. Could speak 6 languages, big game hunter. He would write serious scientific articles in his spare time in the White House. One historian, Richard Brookhiser, said of Teddy Roosevelt, he had such a personality that he would suck the air out of any room he was in just by his presence and his intellectual energy. To me, that's the most interesting person ever to become president. Another president I think find very interesting on a different level is Calvin Coolidge. He was known as Silent Cal because he never talked too much. He said his motto was, "You can't get into trouble for what you don't say." But he was a guy who he rejected the imperial presidency. And one great story is when Coolidge at night wanted to get a sandwich, he didn't call down and wake up the White House staff, the chefs there, to make him a sandwich. He would go down and get the mayonnaise out and the cold cuts and the bread and make his own sandwiches, and then spend half an hour talking with whoever was down there at the time.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, thanks. That's some great information. Thanks for coming on the show today. For Bulldog Bites, I'm Megan, and we'll see you guys next time.